Hey, Jeremy.
What's up, Oliver?
I had a really good bit today. I was thinking about a bit to start the show on today,
Hmm.
and I was laughing at it because I was like, "Oh, I'll get a natural goddamn it out of Jeremy," or something to
Hmm.
that effect. Uh, but I don't remember it, and so God damn it, hello.
God damn it, hello.
God damn it. Hello.
But I wanted to tell you about it so you didn't think that I was slacking on us coming up with a cold open for this show.
Cold
I
intro.
Yeah, a cold actually. Well, the cold intro, I'm gonna turn the thermostat way down, and we're gonna do a cold show.
I feel
Could you
like
please?
our cold intro is the fact that we never have a cold intro.
Yes, the cold open.
Right. Or cold open, whatever.
Um, and then there's the wet show that we're gonna do that Jeremy doesn't want to do. But I promise it'll happen. I just want you
I
to
don't
know.
remember what that means.
I always say it's gonna be the wettest show, and then you say, "Don't say that."
That's just
Uh,
gross. That sounds gross.
I know that's why I want to do it. Yeah, but I want you to know that I do think about this show all the time. I just don't have a lot of follow through with certain things, so I forgot them.
Should probably start writing it down when you think of something.
I wrote down a really funny idea I had in a dream the other night, but then I looked at it in the daytime and it didn't make any damn sense at all.
It's usually how that
Those are the best ones. I love writing things down because it's always fun for them not to make sense later.
Well, I like
Well, we've got to
one
do a
time
show one day where we go through all the things that don't make sense that we've written down on our phone.
on the notepad, yeah.
Yeah.
I found one once after hanging out with Alex late at night one time, doing nothing in his garage. And the idea that we came up with was just written down. It says Ted Danson, and then it says, "Man, I'm always cleaning this glass." And then under it, it says, "Man, this asshole is always filled with fists." I don't know what it means.
You're talking about Cheers.
I'm talking about Cheers. I don't know where the asshole came in.
Great.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Yeah, I don't
don't
thought
think
it could
that's
be
anything.
something, but it's nothing.
I think that you were so engrossed in doing nothing that
Yep.
you warped your perception of what was an actual joke.
It does happen. Usually when Alex and I do nothing, we scheme about how to convert the McDonald's chicken nugget scale. Because we're convinced that there's some kind of deal with the chicken nuggets where if you buy enough of them, it converts to 1 cent per nugget. We came up with it one time while doing nothing in his garage. And since then, we haven't been able to get back to it. But if you ask Alex on any occasion how to get the 1 cent nugget, it does turn into a speech.
Got it. Next time we have Alex on as a guest,
We'll ask him about the
we'll
1
ask him
cent
about the
nugget.
1 cent nugget. But we don't have Alex here, so we have to talk about things on our own.
No, it's just us today.
It's just us.
How you guys doing?
We're great.
We're doing great.
Yeah, we're doing awesome.
I'm doing stressful.
Why
Why
stressful?
are you stressed?
I have to give a speech tomorrow, and this is my way of avoiding writing the speech I have to do, is talking to you guys instead.
What does this speech have to be about?
I'm running for a treasurer position in a thing, and I have to give a speech for the election.
What thing?
It's a school thing.
It's a school thing.
Oh, okay.
He's going to be the treasurer of a club. If positivity, he's going to be the treasurer of the club.
Yes, power of positive thinking.
Jeremy loves public speaking, if anybody didn't know.
The positive side is that it can't be any worse than the worst speech I've ever given, which is when I ran for PR of an a cappella group I was in, and I got up and told everybody to vote for the other candidate.
Why?
Now,
Well, she gave her speech before me, and I thought she did really well, and I thought she was very well suited for the position, and I got up and I panicked. And I said, you should just vote for Michelle. And then I realized what I had done, and I said, this is over. And I just sat down, and that was pretty much it.
it's like the Parks and Rec joke. where she's running for city council against Paul Rudd, and Paul Rudd goes, "I'm going to vote for you."
Yeah.
But it really happened.
Our friend Mo once ran
It can't
for
get any
student.
worse, is the
It
point.
can't. I actually think like I'm significantly better at public speaking than I am at talking on camera. I think I'm.
That sucks for us. That sucks
Oh,
for
I
me,
know.
huh?
I'm great at public speaking, and but then when I don't have a person in front of me, I feel like I get too lost in my thoughts and go off on tangents.
See, like I prefer like public speaking because I feel like I need to have my thoughts kind of collected beforehand as opposed to like this where it's a lot of like off the cuff stuff. So it's more like you're saying, like getting lost in your thoughts or just feeling like you're being very repetitive or, like it just doesn't feel as organized as like when I know I have to talk to a group and therefore I have like my bullet points to hit and then I can hit them and then I can just be done.
Right. I mean, I think I know Jeremy does a lot of work on this show and I'm not saying that, but I think out of prepping for the show and like what is going to be said on the show, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I put the most thought into it just because I plan out what topic we're going to talk about for the most part.
I definitely put the least thought into it, and I'll admit that right off the bat.
I don't know if that's true.
Why?
I don't think about it very much.
Well, I
think I'm much better for this type of thing. I'm much better unprepared.
See, but what I mean about thought is Oliver's doing the pre, you're doing the post. I'm just here for the party.
Right. And when we do it in real life, I'm doing the pre and I'm producing the show.
Right.
This not so much, but and I'm not to say that Jeremy doesn't put a lot of work into this show because he also cuts the whole thing and makes us sound good.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I am just the talent here. So I will not do anything else because I am purely just talent.
Typical, these Hollywood types.
I know.
But
I also keep you both in check. So
we don't talk about Spider-Man nearly as much as we normally would.
And yet now we're talking about it again.
There's no good Spider-Man news this week, though.
When you guys were out of the room, I was, in fact, reading a Spider-Man comic book, and I want to point out that sometimes I feel like a caricature of myself. Because you walked in and I was reading a Spider-Man comic, and I was like, oh, shit.
I listened to that scene in Spider-Man Far From Home that I hate? No, quick, we'll get off the topic in a minute, but the scene in Spider-Man Far From Home when he shoots the missile at the bus, which I like Far From Home, to be clear, but I watched a whole thing today about how to rewrite that scene first of all, like, I hate those, like, fan rewrites on YouTube because it's like, okay, this is great, but this is not the movie.
Right.
But I watched one today and I was thinking about it. And I think the scene where Peter Parker tries to blow up his school bus is infinitely worse than Peter Parker dancing in the nightclub.
I agree.
And it's a
Peter Parker. No, we can't talk about Spider-Man.
Peter
Parker dancing in the nightclub is not a bad scene. It works within context of the film. It just feels silly and people don't like it. It feels silly.
Here's the thing. I understand and I've heard the arguments that make it work in context, which is why it's a better scene than the missile. But I think it's too far out there for me personally. What are you looking for?
Nothing. Sorry, I got distracted.
Okay.
Because you guys are talking about Spider-Man and I just don't care.
We could talk about not Spider-Man.
Great.
But while we are on the topic, real quick, just my plugs for the week. I put out a new trailer for a series that I'm going to be doing where I play through the entire Spider-Man PS4 game. If that's your cup of tea and you like gaming, or you like watching people do things that they don't know how to do, or you just like listening to Spider-Man talk,
or Oliver,
or me, go watch that. It has all of those things.
I lay in my bed behind you.
Yeah, you're in it.
So I'm also in it.
You're in it.
Nice.
Because this is about me, clearly.
Mm-hmm. And I had another plug. We're having a guest on, but I'm not going to say who it is. Coming weeks. I think I already said who it was, so go back and listen if that. Our logo designed by Point C Surf. Go there, check it out. I think he's getting a new website soon.
He has it up today. Actually, Pointy Surf has his new website up today. I actually just bought myself a shirt because
we're not sponsored, by the way.
No,
it's just our friend.
It's just our friend.
Like.
And he wanted somebody to go on and see how the website was working to make sure there were no glitches. There are no glitches. Everything was beautiful. And now I have a new shirt.
And he makes very cool designs. If you like our robot design, that is our logo and channel bumper.
Yep.
He's a really great artist and he makes a lot of cool stuff. So definitely go there and check it out. And we have a new sketch coming out on Friday.
Good for us.
Nope. Don't say on Friday. By the time this goes out, it will already be out.
We have a new sketch out. It's called the Untitled Upload.
We record these in advance.
It's coming out on the 22nd. So if it's past that, it's already out.
Yeah.
There you go.
And ANProductions?
Oh, yes. I don't have a date on this, so I wasn't going to throw it, but I may as well.
You've been plugging it anyway, so I figured.
Yeah, I've been plugging it, so I'm going to keep plugging it. No date yet, but we will get on the mic before there is a date. In the meantime, go look at the ANProductions Facebook page. They do live streams of their films and of other filmmakers' films during the week. And we are taking up about half an hour of their block time, which is awesome. So
good for us.
Yeah, go check that out. A lot of old sketches of ours, including top 5 numbers that are not the number 5, JJ's Picture Palooza, and today's theme is horses.
There we go.
And a cool commentary from me about all of them.
I'm not in that, so if you're a fan of me only, then go watch it to support the rest of them, but I'm not in it.
Sure, yeah. Anyway,
I'm the talent here, so this is why people are here because of me. So
well, they weren't here when we were making today's theme as horses, so there's that. But we did have fun making today's theme as horses.
I'm very happy for all of you and the horses.
That was a good video, Jeremy. Remember that one?
I do. It's one of our best videos from the perspective of that we can just make we could say a random sentence and make it into a funny video. I think it embodies that concept the best.
Agreed. And I think it's the funniest of the bunch.
Yeah.
In that vein.
Anyway.
So we have some exciting news.
Yes, we do. We have some very exciting news.
This will be one of the last podcasts we do.
It is the second to last one.
From this house.
And we're moving out.
We're moving out.
To a new spot.
To a deluxe apartment in the sky.
Nope, not in the sky. We're not dying. We're going to stay here and keep making content, probably more content.
Yes.
And, excuse me, it's really exciting. We're very excited about it.
Yes.
And we got it for a steal. I don't want to say where it is because I don't want to get doxxed.
No.
Or go into crazy detail about it, but
it's a little further out east than where we live now. We're on Long Island, so we run, east to west here.
And our address is
no. But it's a little further out east, but it's a quieter area. And we'll have a lot of space to create stuff, and we have our own yard, so
and
we're
just
really excited.
A better situation for having people over to do creative stuff and to make things, which I'm so excited about. And my only thing is, who the fuck knew furniture was so damn expensive?
Yep. We've been buying a lot of our stuff through Facebook Marketplace, and thank God, because I don't even know what will be going on. It's first of all, obviously we're still in the middle of this pandemic. We have not, forgotten about it. None of the stores that you would normally frequent when you were moving are open.
Oh yeah, moving during the quarantine.
Yeah,
fucking sucks.
It's good in a sense because we're not working regular schedules. We don't have to commute. It's not any of that stuff. But at the same time, our resources are so limited that I get excited to go to Walmart to look for dish towels.
Which
because
I would
that's
never
all I can
buy my furniture in.
That's
Walmart.
all I could do. There's not much else.
Well, my dad was just saying to me the other day, he goes, "Why don't you go to IKEA?" And I was
IKEA's
like,
not
"IKEA's
open."
closed. He goes, "Even IKEA?"
Yeah.
Yes, even IKEA.
We can't go.
I can't believe they got the Swedes.
Yeah. We can't go to a furniture store. We can't go to I don't know, anywhere else, any other interiors. We can't do any of that
we
stuff.
can go to Target.
We can't go to Home Goods or TJ Maxx or Marshalls where I would normally be, thrifting for stuff for the house. And It's very frustrating. We can go to Target and Walmart and Big Lots, and that's pretty much what we've been doing.
We did buy a nice couch though the other day.
Facebook
We got it for a
Marketplace.
steal.
We're not endorsed by them, but
Sponsor me, you bastards.
That's a gem.
Do it, cowards.
That's a gem of a place to go is Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, it's fun to look at all the stuff on Facebook Marketplace.
Well,
it is.
number 1, that's where we found our apartment. Number 2, it's where we found our couch. Number 3, it's where we picked up our lawn furniture.
I buy a lot
today.
of film gear off of there
Yeah.
too. And it's really fun to look at people selling mirrors on there.
Yeah.
Because the pictures are silly.
Yes.
But
I'm part of all. I follow the Mirrors for Sale subreddit. It's very entertaining.
I love the Mirrors for Sale Facebook Marketplace. But we bought a nice couch from there.
A beautiful couch. It was a steal. I actually almost feel bad for how little we paid for it.
And my father has a phobia of buying used furniture. Like a legitimate, like he's scared of it.
Like he's afraid of it. Like he thinks it's going to eat him in the middle of the night.
So
Strange.
But I'm using his shed to store the couch in. So it's a big test of wills here about if he wants to help or if he wants to burn the couch.
I'd be very surprised if the couch actually makes it to our apartment in 12 days.
Yeah, my father is convinced that the youth of the Bronx has been going to this person's apartment and peeing on the couch.
We didn't get it from the Bronx. We got it from Forest.
Doesn't matter.
We got it from Forest Hills in Queens. So if you're familiar with New York or Queens or any of the 5 boroughs, you know that Forest Hills is a nice area.
Yeah, but in my dad's head, all used furniture is from the Bronx and will give you asthma.
Right.
So there's that.
We got it from a very nice gay couple,
man and his husband,
and they had a
beautiful home.
A beautiful home and a naked picture of Lady Gaga on the wall, and I was with it. I got into it. I loved all of it. They were probably some of the nicest people I've ever met. And I'm very happy with the couch.
Coffee table, I hope.
I'm very happy with the couch. It is a beautiful piece of furniture.
And I can't wait to sit on it.
It looks brand new. Had we bought it brand new, we would have spent well over $1,000. And we did not spend anywhere near that because these people were amazing. And
I hope that one day they decide to part with their naked framed Lady Gaga picture.
Yes, because I will buy that. And I will buy their coffee table.
Speaking of things that I like to buy and then things that I like, you guys ready to jump into the real topic of the show?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just want to say one more thing before we do that. Sorry. Jeremy, I can't wait for you to come over and see our new apartment.
I can't wait to see it. I'm very excited.
And apparently our couch that hasn't been peed on is very, very comfy and very good to sleep on. So if you ever want to stay over, you're more than welcome to.
I promise it won't give you asthma.
I hope it won't. I do like being able to breathe good.
Yes, it will not. It will be fine. But yes, you could stay over, especially since we are a little bit more of a ways away than we normally are. Even though from where you live, it's probably only about 5 minutes further from where we live now.
Yeah, it's really not bad.
Yeah, it's really.
Yeah, I just don't know how to drive. So,
no, we know that.
You know.
So we're saying for our benefit, you'll probably end up sleeping over because then we don't have to drive you home.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We could talk about that not on the podcast, though.
Well, also, as a quick aside,
we do live close to the train station also. Sorry. Go ahead.
A quick aside, unrelated to everything, I was considering having us watch the new Scooby-Doo movie.
Oh, why?
Because
it's so
a new
weird.
Movie, and it's
the only reason I'll watch it is because Zac Efron is voicing.
Well, you know what's so weird? Several people have hit me up to be like, let's watch the new Scooby-Doo movie. Because
that's all that's out. But I'll say
if I watch it, I only want to watch it with you and Theo.
Right. I will say.
Bye.
Oh, well, are you going to watch it over Zoom with us?
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
I've never seen a Scooby-Doo movie before, so.
I was interested because I love the original Hanna-Barbera stuff that is not Scooby-Doo. I mean, I like Scooby-Doo, but I'd say it's the one that I like the least. Like, I like Captain Caveman, although, but, and they're all appearing in the movie, which I think is really cool. So I was going to say, let's just watch it and we'll review it because we haven't been able to do any reviews. And it was between that and that Chris Hemsworth movie, and I have zero interest in that.
I'm not watching that.
Even though it's the Russo brothers, so it might be cool. But, I saw a commercial the other day for Walmart, and they were giving out a deal for Scoob. Like, if you buy this thing, you get a deal on buying the digital of Scoob. And the deal was $13 off. How much are they selling this movie for if they can afford to give it to me for $13 off?
Well, if it's digital, then they only make profit. So they can afford to do big discounts.
Well, you have to make back the money that it took to
Well,
make the
usually
movie.
when
It's
you
not
try to
going
buy
the
a
movie theater.
when you try to buy a new movie on digital, like through Amazon, it's like anywhere between like $18 and $20.
Well, it's going to be more for $20, but
I meant that like digitally, it doesn't cost money to produce you don't have to produce a disc and a case for the disc and then ship it somewhere. You just send someone a code. So it costs a lot less to physically produce the actual copy of the movie, and you can do discounts a lot easier. That's more of what I was referring to.
My point is, I don't know if the movie was out in theaters like it was supposed to be. I wouldn't have paid north of $20 to see it.
No, absolutely not. And I don't even know if we would have used our time to see it at that point.
Well, and to tell you the truth, I would have
skipped it. I was planning on skipping it.
Yeah. I also I don't believe in pirating movies at this juncture in my life. I don't like that.
Right.
I believe in supporting the artist. So if I'm going to watch it, I'm going to pay for it. And I don't know that
yeah, we had the opportunity to pirate last night and we didn't.
Because I want to pay for as many movies as I can. I believe that's the right thing to do.
Jeremy, have you seen Best in Show?
Jeremy, how often do you pirate movies?
I never pirate movies, and I have more than once scolded you for talking about pirating movies on this podcast.
That's ironic because I don't even like pirating movies.
I haven't seen the movie that you said. I don't remember what it's called.
Best in Show.
Best in Show.
It was funny.
Yeah, it's funny.
I'd like to watch it again.
Dry humor.
Anyhow.
Yeah.
But the topic of today. Book club. We've been putting it off for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, more than 2 weeks.
We've had a lot going on.
We filmed the episode where we talked about doing this book club segment just about a month ago. I think it's only been 2 weeks in podcast time.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's been 3 weeks in podcast time. Okay, sorry. It's been 4 weeks in podcast time because we recorded that episode and then we had the Colin episode. Then we had Alex on.
Then we did top 10.
Then we did top 10. And then we did last week's episode.
Which we just didn't do it. Excuse me. Oh, my goodness.
Oliver is drunk on bourbon already.
I will put it out there that I think this will realistically be the timeline of these. If we do this, I don't want every week to be a book club
Maybe
segment.
cut it down to like 2 weeks instead of 4 weeks. That would probably be helpful.
But yeah, I do apologize that it took so long.
Yes.
Or we could cut down the amount of movies.
We can talk about that in the future.
This is things that we will talk about off camera probably.
Yes.
I want to apologize though for how long it took, but about a month ago, we recommended 3 movies for all of us to watch that only one of us had seen each. And we're going to talk about them today. Starting with whose recommendation? Who would like to go first? We all watched it.
We could start with anything.
Let's start with Brick because that's the freshest in my mind.
Cool.
Okay, so my recommendation was Brick, which is a movie by Rian Johnson, who, despite people trashing him for Star Wars, I truly believe is one of the best filmmakers working today. And one of the most, just like in our tour.
He did Knives Out, right?
Movies, he did Knives Out.
Yeah.
You know, and actually I was thinking about that the other day because I like The Last Jedi, which I say every time it's brought up, but I think it's important. And I think one of the best things about Rise of Skywalker coming out, because I hated that movie, but one of the things that was nice about it being bad was that Rian Johnson in the same week had a movie that was a 98 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Right.
And, you know, I have more of a vested interest in Rian Johnson than I do in Star Wars.
Yep.
So it was nice to see everybody who trashed him for that long, and then the Star Wars movie was bad, but his movie was good.
Yeah, we just recently watched Knives Out again, and that movie is great.
It is. I also recently rewatched Knives Out. That's so weird. Wow. Wasn't even a thing that it wasn't a book club movie. We
watched it on Mother's Day because my mom wanted to see it, so we watched it with her.
Good picks. But the thing about Brick is that it was very early in Rian Johnson's career. I believe it is the first feature film that he made. If he made one before it, it wasn't a wide released one.
Uh-huh.
But it is his first feature film IMDb credit.
Okay.
He made this movie for no money at all. He wrote it himself and he cast his friends in it, which I think is that's awesome. It's a movie that I could have made, or Jeremy could have made, or you could have made, It didn't cost him very much to do it, and he just wrote a kick-ass script, and it's his script talking for the movie, nothing else about it,
Right.
And on top of that, it's a really cool concept. If you love crime noir films and detective movies, this is a fresh spin on that genre. Not the same way that Knives Out is, because Knives Out is more of a classic mystery. This is a gritty crime noir, but he put it all in high school. And it's obvious I'm a fan of the movie because I recommended it, but I would rate it very highly. And what do you guys think?
I enjoyed it. I'll be honest, it took me a bit to get into it. I think that
I agree.
I think if I wasn't required to watch it for this, I probably wouldn't have made it through the whole thing, I'll be honest.
Agreed as well.
But I did end up really enjoying it by the end. For a while, I was like, I don't know why they're in high school. This is just a crime noir. So I kept feeling this disconnect between I want it to be a thing, but it just feels like it's putting it in this setting for no reason. But I don't know. It didn't. I don't know.
No.
So crime noir and older movies are not necessarily my thing, and I've said this multiple times. So it took me a while when the movie started to actually understand that that's what was going on, and I feel like that makes me sound really ditzy, but it just was. I didn't know what. It's
understandable if it's not the thing.
I didn't know what to expect. I had no ideas whatsoever going into it because we tried to not talk too much about the movies so that we didn't have these preconceived notions. So I really had no clue what was going on. So then when I just hear them talking to each other, I'm just like, what the hell is going on? Thankfully, I watched with closed caption because I would have missed 60% of it had I not. Yeah, it was very, in the beginning, I think it takes a while to get into. And I think that you're kind of lost for the first act. And only once you really get into the middle of this movie are you kind of okay, now I guess I see where we're supposed to be going here, and then obviously the end wraps it all up and then it all makes sense. So,
and I would say it's exactly what you just said. Until it's explained to you, you don't know why things are happening.
Right.
Which is why this movie is so cool on a fucking rewatch. I have now watched this movie twice since we did this book club. Because I watched it on my own, and then you just watched it, and I caught little parts of it. Once you know all of the elements of the story, it's so much better. But even so, I think it's a movie that if you can commit to, it rewards you for sticking with the slow movie by the end.
Yes.
And going back to it being in high school, I think there's a real reason it's in high school, and then I think there's an artsy reason that it's in high school, and of course, the real reason is because it's very cheap to film in a high school.
And it's cheap to have young actors,
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
As the main characters of your movie.
Right.
I think that as a framing element, it's I don't know, noir movies are not actually my thing either, but it does feel weird to have it be played that straight by people that wouldn't be doing it like that.
Well,
so it does create an interesting juxtaposition.
Right. Well, first of all, it's attention grabbing.
It doesn't go far enough with the concept of them being in high school, which is what I meant before when I was like, why are they in high school?
I thought that the parallels were really funny because every time he goes in to talk to the principal, it's he's talking to either a police chief or some higher up in the government or whatever. Even at the fact that his name was Gary Truman, Harry Truman, you know what I mean? It reminded me of all that stuff, which was really interesting. And then just the conversations that they were having with one another and the relations that they were having with one another felt very obviously adult in this, very young setting. So at times it was a little off-putting, especially when and spoiler alert, I guess, when you see one just flat out, shoots the other one in the head, and you think
kids,
this is a 16-year-old kid. Yeah, it's
Well, the big thing, I think there's a couple of reasons why he chooses to put it in high school. As a fan of crime noir, the most pressing is that crime noirs always take place in a small town. And they're always in places where the detective knows every person. Now, if you grew up in a large town like Los Angeles, like Rian Johnson, you don't have that experience any time in your life except for when you are in high school.
Right.
When you're in high school, you know every person of every status.
Right.
And you know who they are, and everybody fits into the same
And
mold.
you pretty much know where people are going to be throughout the course of the day.
Correct.
Because they're going to be in school, you know?
Which is the narrative device that an old crime noir gets by using by putting it in a small town.
Right.
When you put that in high school, you get the same exact effect of each person being in a different thing, in a different niche. Like they have the theater kids and the, you know,
right,
things like that. And the gangsters, the kids who smoke cigarettes.
The cliques.
Yeah.
Those things.
So that is why he puts it in there. I also think that it helps him build a lot of the tension and also gives him a lot of the comedic payoff. Because this is a dark comedy, you know, of sorts. And while things are going along and they're very serious and there's drugs at play and there's kids dying and stuff, then he takes like a step back and they're eating cornflakes and the one kid's mom is serving them like orange juice and he like stops and reminds you, like, no, these are kids.
Right.
You know, and I think a movie that didn't have this narrative conceit wouldn't be able to do that, obviously.
Yeah,
Right.
It very much reminded me of like Romeo and Juliet, the one with Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes, and like 10 Things I Hate About You, and She's the Man. Like all the movies that were adapted from like Shakespeare. Obviously, it wasn't adapted from Shakespeare; it was adapted from like a crime noir, you know, old timey kind of film. But like all those movies get adapted to be high school things because a lot of the times they're very dramatic and they're very like tense, and like to put them in a high school makes them a little lighter and a little funnier and a little more relatable because we all, like, you know, most people have gone to high school. Most people have been, you know, involved in some sort of drama or clique or, you know, this, that, or whatever. And it makes the story that they're telling become more real to you because you can think back to, oh, when I was in high school, these things were going on.
And I would put
you
it
know,
that when you're in high school as well, besides it being like the small town, that's the entire world to you. That's what feels real and serious to you at the time. You don't realize that it's not until you're out of high school.
Right, exactly. Jeremy?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It didn't sound like an agreement statement to agree to, but the way that you've just put it into a context for me, I guess, like, yes, it makes sense for it to be in a high school. It didn't get in the way of my enjoyment of the movie at the points that I was enjoying the movie, at least. So it's, you know, but like, I guess I get it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, you either get it or you don't.
Yeah,
you know?
I get it.
And sometimes you only get it after you watch the movie. But I think
I more refer to like plot-wise, there are not a lot of things that happen
that would require it to be high school.
Yeah. That was more what I meant when I was like, why are they in high school? It's like, it's just
I think that plot-wise, they don't have to be in high school because I really think that the plot is completely just like ripped from a crime noir film, you know, in which it was adults at one point in time in a small town, you know, dealing with all that stuff. And then they just put it in the high school, like we said before, just because it makes the world smaller and therefore all of these things more believable.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I want to say, you know, before moving into the next one, when I talk about Rian Johnson being one of the best filmmakers of all time, I really do mean that.
Oh, I know.
And watching a movie like this, because he has no money, first of all, that's such an easy recipe to fuck your movie up, that things aren't going to look good by themselves. You have to frame that so that they look good.
I mean, even having money doesn't mean that you're going to have a good movie. Look at The Fucking Room.
Right.
Like, you know.
There's no crutch, though, you know. It's all his talent that's making you engaged in the movie and the intentional shots.
It's the screenplay and the dialogue and the way that they're filming it that make you want to watch the movie. Yeah.
You can tell the guy has a real picture in his head that is not like the picture that you would have if you made the movie.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And that in Joseph Gordon-Levitt is so good.
He is so
He's
good. I
such
love
a
him.
good actor. And that scene where he cries, like, as outlandish as the movie is and like weird, that's the human element of the movie, is
Right.
how sad he is in that scene.
And every right to be, because his girlfriend is dead. He's in the middle of this crime syndicate in his high
and
school.
they think he did it.
And they think he did it, exactly. And he doesn't know who to trust. He only has himself. And, you know, he's trying to figure this out and get justice for his ex-girlfriend,
And
you
that
know?
acting, that's what the movie being as weird as it is, for me, I didn't care until that happened.
Right.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's, oh, this is real, and this is a real actor. And I just want to say, it's such a shame that we don't see Joseph Gordon-Levitt in the movies anymore.
Yeah. I don't know what happened to him.
He's so good.
He
I
is
love
so
him.
good.
I don't know.
All right. Next. Jeremy, let's talk about your movie.
Let's talk about my movie.
You talk about it, and then we'll hop in.
My movie was The Beauty Inside, which is a Korean film that I watched a long time ago with my friend Debbie and my cousin. I had a very similar experience rewatching this movie. So I could tell you what the movie's about, because most people probably will not know what this movie is, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a show, I found out. There's a Korean show by the same name.
Yeah, I found that out trying to find it to watch it.
Yeah, me too.
And they're also remaking it into...
Well,
okay,
we'll get there. That's...
Sorry.
It's about a guy who makes chairs. And every day he wakes up and he is a different person. He looks like a different person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a love story. And that's the concept of the movie, basically. It doesn't...
Which is like surprising that like Oliver and I talked about, Jeremy, that you even like this movie as much, because I feel like you've said multiple times that you don't like it when love stories get in the way of like plot, I guess you could say.
You're right. I do. You're correct. I don't enjoy it when love stories get in the way of the plot. And I think that love stories are too often used as a B story. I don't have an issue with a movie that is a love story, though. And that is what this is. It is a... It
is a romance, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's hope that stays true to our next movie. But anyway.
Well, that's not, like, it doesn't... I don't have an issue if the concept of the movie is that it's romance. That's fine. I think that it's too often a B plot, and I don't think it's done interestingly enough, or whatever. I don't know. Yeah.
Agreed. I was more thinking that because it came up about the big sick.
Right.
You know, so it was just fresh in my head, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I get it. If you go into it knowing it's a romance, you know, then you have no problem with it being a romance.
Yeah.
Understood.
So go on.
I don't know. I'm gonna critique the movie for a second. I forgot about I think it's a bit long, and it has a moment at the beginning that it gives you a lot of exposition that I think is unnecessary and shouldn't be there. But otherwise, I enjoy it. What did you guys think of this movie?
I don't mean to rain on your parade.
That's okay.
I'm gonna start with my positives here.
I will say that I recognize I did pick a rather inaccessible movie that was partially intentional. I wanted to pick something that you guys probably wouldn't have watched otherwise, and that I thought you might like.
I was with you on that train of thought, which is part of the reason that I picked Brick, was it was weird. My thing about this movie, and I got to give a little bit of history about it. We'll start with Parasite. Just because I think there's a comparison there. When Parasite came out, and obviously it was the Best Picture winner and all this other stuff,
which we also recently just watched again.
We were late to the party on it,
Mm-hmm.
and the big thing that I had heard was, oh, it's very weird and strange movie telling because it's from another country. And I've seen a lot of French movies. I, understand that that's a thing that happens a lot of times. Different countries have different sensibilities.
I'll go on the record and say, I am not a foreign film connoisseur.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
When Parasite was over, though, the first thing I said was that wasn't that weird.
No.
Because Parasite is still a very American movie.
Mm-hmm.
and follows mostly American sensibilities in movie making.
Right.
This movie is very Korean.
Right.
From what I, certain things that happen in it are things that I appreciate. I like this about the movie. Are just not reflective of American life. It's reflective of a different life because they're in a different life.
Right.
And B, I think a lot of this movie, the way that it's told and certain things that happen are a little too risque for American censors.
Yes.
Not that the movie is risque, but there are sequences where, because the main character changes, appearance and gender, the things that you always wonder about in that sort of circumstance. There's a scene where his friend asks basically to fuck him because he's a woman. There is a scene where he turns into a small boy, which American censors are very scared of that sort of thing.
Right.
For good reason. But he turns into a small boy and still has to take her on a date.
Right.
All things that don't fly over here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's interesting that the movie was able to just tell it to you like it was in the context of a real story, because I believe that both of those things would have happened,
Right.
Where I have trouble with this movie is I actually have Jeremy's complaint about it, that I think the romance gets in the way of the concept that I really liked. I think him changing bodies every day is a high stakes concept.
Right.
And you could tell that story about anything. And it's not the movie's fault, but I've seen a lot of romance movies, So the element that I'm least concerned with is the A plot, that he's with this girl and he wants to be with her. And it does it in a way that's very sweet because he can't tell her that he's with her, that he wants to be with her at first. And there's an entire sequence where she's at this gallery and he keeps going and seeing her in a different body every day, which is super sweet. That he could, he couldn't say to her like, no, I know you from yesterday.
Right. It's me,
yeah. And I think part of the reason that I have trouble with that is because we've seen an American movie that is very similar to this one. That was
Every Day.
It's called Every Day.
Yeah.
I don't know this movie.
I wouldn't expect you to. This was a very cheaply made
don't
young adult movie.
Don't watch it.
It's not a good movie. This movie is
good.
better than that movie.
Yes, I agree.
But
the resemblance or the similarities are too close to not even bring it up. Like to not bring it up.
Right. It is also a romance about a person who changes bodies every day.
Right.
The difference is that the person in that movie is, first of all, he's a teenager and is into like a teenage girl. This movie's about adults.
Right.
But also in this movie where he changes his body every day but still wakes up in the same place.
He's still the same being.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. The American movie that we saw Every Day, the main character is taking over other people's bodies for the day.
Right. So he's changing a real person's behavior every day. So it's as if somebody like lived in my body for a day and then went and lived in Oliver's body for a day, then went and lived in your body, Jeremy, for the day. They would be behaving differently, or people would be able to know that we were different for that period of time.
Right. And the main element that I liked about that movie is that has a certain amount of stakes to it, that he couldn't control where he was every day. He would wake up sometimes in a different country, and I thought that was a really cool concept. And again, this American movie, Every Day, stumbles on the same thing of it trying to be a romance when you already have this high stakes concept, which is not a problem. If I had seen either one of these movies and not the other, I would have never thought anything of it, know. But seeing both, what?
Like me, who only saw one and didn't think much of it.
Right.
So, but I will say that the ending of The Beauty Inside is much more satisfying than the ending of this movie Every Day, because they find each other again,
and being about adults and about real like fully developed people,
who don't have to worry about the consequences of like their parents finding out where they are, like something like that.
It's just more from my world.
Yeah, no,
you know?
no, I know. But I'm saying like the ending of The Beauty Inside is much more satisfying just because they end up together. And obviously if you're watching a love story, you want them to be together and you want them to defy the odds and to find each other again and to know that their souls were connected in a way. And that's exactly what happens. Whereas in this movie Every Day, honestly, I couldn't even tell you how it ends. I think he lets her go because...
Now, I got to confess here, I watched most of Beauty Inside.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't make it through the last 10 minutes. But
Oh.
I will. But it's only because I've kind of had to multitask. And this movie is in another language. But I will watch it. I am intrigued and want to see the end.
Yes. I just spoiled it for you.
I guess I won't say
I just did.
particularly what happens at the end, but I really like the shot that it ends on. I think I like that.
You know, it's also like it's a well shot movie that, again, you look at it and by Korean standards it has a lot of money, but here by our standards this is a very cheap movie to make, you know, so it's again attention to what you're doing, which I feel like the movie occasionally looks a little soap opera-y for my taste personally.
Sorry.
Why are you laughing at?
What is it?
Thinking about the next movie we have to talk about.
I got things to say about that, but
We have things to say.
This movie, though, for what they're working with and what they're doing, big accomplishment to make a movie that looks this good, you know? And on top of that, like, I don't know, I like this concept. I would just like to see it applied somewhere else, which is unfortunate because apparently there is a direct American remake coming out.
Yes.
I didn't know about this until just now.
Like, yeah, of this movie starring Emilia Clarke.
They're just going to toss her in all these rom-coms.
They're just going to throw her at the wall until something sticks that
Right.
isn't Daenerys.
I'll probably end up seeing the American
that
remake.
didn't end up sticking
She
either.
got a lot of paychecks from that.
I know, but could argue. Anyway.
But you know, this is still a solid B for me. I would just like to see a non-romance. I'm sorry for rambling on.
That's okay.
Oh, that's the point, is to talk about these movies.
Right. We don't really have much else to talk about, so we might as well use our time doing this. It took long enough for us to get here.
It made me feel good back then, and I recently kept thinking about it a lot, and it still makes me feel good.
That's good. I like it when you can revisit a movie and still feel like very similar feelings to the first time you watched it.
I was actually very worried about that rewatching it this time. I was like, that's
how I felt watching Knives Out the second time. Like I felt very similar and still like
kind of revved up by that movie.
Yeah, like on the edge of my seat, like even though I knew what happened, like you know, you don't remember all the specifics when you watch a movie like that, so you know, rewatching it again, you're like, oh right.
Yeah.
Hugh did this.
But I was watching this movie, I was like, I feel like it's something I watched long enough ago. It's not going to hold up in my brain the way that I remember it. And then the thing I said about the beginning, I feel like it gives too much backstory right at the beginning. I was like, uh-oh, I just made my friends watch a movie that I don't even like. But I come around back on it.
I'll go on the record now for the next movie that we're going to talk about, which was my pick, and say I didn't watch it recently, but that's because I've seen it many times and I've read the book more than once.
I've watched it recently enough to remember.
Yeah, and I
watched it for the
didn't
first
feel
time.
it necessary. I actually watched Breaking Dawn Part 1 the other day instead, which is one of my favorites. Yes. I like Breaking Dawn.
Well,
I actually really like
the movie is first.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I made the boys watch Twilight.
The first Twilight movie.
Well, yeah, it's just called Twilight. The other ones have other names.
Well, just in case.
Okay.
If you weren't
we watched the first Twilight film. And yeah, I didn't watch it because I've seen it many times.
I only watched it a couple months ago, so I
would really, I really want to hear what Jeremy has to say. Okay.
So Jeremy, go for it, and then I got things to say too. Actually, no. I'm sorry, Jeremy. Brittany, go for it, and then Jeremy, go for it, and then I will.
Okay. So I made the boys watch Twilight because I feel like you guys picked movies that had some sort of effect on you, like in more of a youthful time in your life, and how that like now translate into you being like more of an adult. And for me, that just means it was a longer time ago because I'm older than you. So I picked something more from my youth, and Twilight was really big when I was like finishing, when I was like right in like between high school and college.
Quick sidebar, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I do just want to point out that we are not young enough that Twilight was not part of our youths.
And I'm not saying that it's not, but
no,
you know,
I just want to.
It's a big difference between being a 17, 18-year-old girl and being a 11-year-old boy. Grade. Yeah.
Not for you. Just for anybody watching, we are old enough to be culturally aware of Twilight.
And
that's all that I'm saying.
I did not imply that you weren't.
No,
I'm just saying it hits you differently. So I made you guys watch Twilight just because I felt like it had a big effect on me in my more formative years. And I think it's a movie that really, or a franchise, I guess you could say, that really gets a bad rep. And I know why. Like, I understand why, but I actually don't think it's as bad as people want to make fun of it for being. I really think that there are much more egregious films and franchises out there, or franchises that are successful and do very, very similar things. But this one, for whatever reason, is just a scapegoat. And I understand that there are parts of it that are ridiculous and soap opera and dramatic and whatever, but it's also a movie about friggin' vampires and werewolves. What did you expect? So
this one's not about werewolves.
That's true.
Quick sidebar, shocked that there were no direct werewolves in this movie.
They mention the Kulet tribe. I can't pronounce it. But they mention Jacob's tribe and that they are derived from wolves. So
all that I knew about Twilight was Jacob versus Edward. So imagine my surprise knowing the cultural significance of that, to see that Jacob is not in the fucking movie for a while.
He is in the first movie.
I actually completely agree. I think the Jacob versus Team Jacob, Team Edward thing is so interesting, because I guess I haven't watched the rest of the movies, but Team Edward is clearly the only team from this movie.
He's the winner from this movie alone.
And here's the thing. This is what happens when you adapt a movie from a book, because clearly things are left out. And I will say that Jacob does have a much stronger presence in the book than he does in the movies. I don't know why, but that's just how it is. But also, he is very prominent in the second one. The second one.
Right.
Very, very prominent.
But that's the thing, is I don't know why you can, if he's the love interest from movie 2, I don't know why you can
He's not the intentional love interest, that's why.
Yeah, but I don't know why you can be like, yeah, I want him to be the guy, because...
Maybe it just happened later than we thought, though.
Yeah, I don't know.
The only thing I can say about it is that in the first Twilight, I don't think the whole Team Jacob, Team Edward thing happened. That's more
right. Well, like we may not have been aware
culturally was happening in the later movies.
Yeah,
and then they actually have like a visible beef with one another, like as the movies go on. So it very much makes sense if you have read or watched the rest of them.
Now, to me, I assumed it reminded me in this movie, and remember, I haven't seen the others. It reminded me of Hunger Games, another one that I haven't seen every movie, but with PETA and the other guy. And note Gale. That I don't know the other guy's name.
His name is Gale.
Because he was that weak of a love interest.
Okay. So this movie is actually the movie that blazed the trail for movies like The Hunger Games and Divergent to be successful.
But you could make an argument. Mm-hmm. Harry Potter blazed the trail for this movie.
Agreed. But I'm talking about these like dystopian films in a sense that or fantasy films that center around like love triangle of some sort. Like, because that's literally all that Hunger Games and Divergent do. So that's more what I meant. But yes, Harry Potter is the true OG, and I would never argue that, because I would never argue against that.
We're going to show respect.
Yes, we are showing our respect. I'll pour one out for Harry Potter. But yeah. So yes. So I'd love to hear what you guys thought of it.
It wasn't as bad. Okay, I would like to restate, because it's been a while, that obviously I was very young when this was big, and I'd like to believe that these days I'm above dumb shit like this. But the thing at the time, if you're a young boy and Twilight is hot, is to say that, or hot is the hot thing, is to say that Twilight is one of the worst things that exists.
Right.
Obviously, it's not.
Right, which is part of why I wanted you to watch it, because I think that we're far enough removed now.
Yeah, I didn't. I
it's one
didn't
of our
from
big
this watch
solutions.
think that it was going to be that. I didn't go into this watch thinking it was going to be that. I am past the Twilight hate for no reason point of
Mhm.
my life. But I didn't think it was that bad. I didn't hate everything about it. There were some things that yeah, I would just like to dig into my expectations versus reality type thing, I guess.
Sure.
This is gonna sound so dumb, but I genuinely, when people always said that the vampires in Twilight sparkle, I thought that it was a joke or an exaggeration of the way that they're framed in the movie.
So
And even with the context of knowing that people joke about this, in the moment during the movie where he's about to step into the sunlight for the first time, the movie's got me going. I'm like, okay, he's gonna step into the sunlight, and he's gonna be a fucking vampire. He's gonna be ugly and gross, and it's gonna be, this is the type of thing that this movie does. And I was so not expecting for him to be a human-shaped bottle of glitter. It threw me off so much.
okay, so I'm just gonna explain this because I understand again
I really
why
thought it was
without
a joke.
context, right, you would think that this was a joke. So in the movie, I mean in the book, it goes into detail to explain sort of the history of vampires and how the vampires in this world differ, I guess you could say, from what you would assume a normal vampire to be like. And I think that that's kind of like a theme throughout the movies, is that like people always think these things about vampires or like have these preconceived notions about vampires, but they're not really like true for this world. So you have to put yourself in this box and say this is how we're living. So
Right.
The vampires in Twilight sparkle because during their transformation from human to vampire, the vampire venom actually like crystallizes the blood. So it like removes the blood from the body, and that it turns it basically to stone. So they're compared to like Greek statues in that they're not actually like, there's no flesh to them. It's all solid like stone. So that's why when he steps into the sunlight, although it comes off really goofy because he's just fucking sparkling, it's more, I think, with a better head on our shoulders, it would have been more like stone, like a Medusa-esque kind of thing, than it would have been like I'm glittering because I'm a fancy boy kind of thing.
Oliver's really got something to say. I could tell by the way he's leaning into
Yes.
the mic.
Here's my question.
Go ahead.
Is that in the movie? I'm not saying it to be a dick. I'm asking.
He says that they say that his skin is like diamonds.
Yes, they
So
say
I
that his
think
skin
that-
is like diamonds, and then in later movies they show you how they have to kill, or they do show you how they have to kill what's his face, Cam Giganti, in the movie, but they don't really go into like detail of how that works. So like in order to kill the vampires in this thing, you actually have to like rip their heads off and rip their limbs apart and burn them, because that's the only way that they'll die. Normally it's just like a stake through the heart, or one of those things, but that doesn't work for because they're literally made of stone, so they're basically like unbreakable, like unkillable. And it does explain that like when you're beating a vampire, when you're trying to hurt a vampire, they like their body starts to just like crack like rocks would. Like that's kind of
fair enough.
And then later in the film, one of the characters, I don't want to spoil anything, but they show you one of the characters in the movie goes through the transformation. They actually show you inside the body what happens.
We can spoil. I was planning on spoiling things. It is not the
You can
newest
spoil
movie.
No,
These are all
this is
movies.
later. Later in the franchise.
Got it.
We
Yeah.
haven't seen
You
this
guys
yet.
haven't seen this. That's why I'm not.
Got it. I thought you were referring to
Because in a
this
perfect
movie.
world, I would really love it if you would watch all of them. So
Maybe if this podcast goes on long enough, maybe you can pull that
Not a
off.
maybe.
Okay.
This podcast will go long enough for that.
The maybe was whether or not you could pull that off.
Okay. So continue. Go ahead, Jeremy. Now that we're done with the sparkling.
I didn't hate the movie. This is a time where it is a love story, and I don't care for the love story, because here's the thing. I feel like everything I'm about to say about Twilight is breaking no new ground in the slightest. Because I do think that Edward is a bit of a creep, and I'm not into it. I also think that there are no the movie doesn't present Bella with any good options. I recognize this. And not by not trying to get in her pants at every moment that they have, Edward stands above the rest, if that makes
Right.
sense. But I do think, again, I'm not breaking any ground. I do think he's a bit of a creep, and I'm not that into it.
And that was one of the
love story
stranger
starts to fall
things about
apart.
the movie is because like everybody like the Bella in the movie Bella in the book is described to be like this really beautiful, like goofy and like clumsy, but like still sort of like charismatic, and like people are pretty much like drawn to her. And Kristen Stewart just doesn't really do that. She just like
Well, she doesn't act.
doesn't emote that in any way. So yeah, that's where where there's a big disconnect, I guess you could say. But anyway.
Yeah.
Oliver?
Here's my thing about Twilight. I don't hate this movie. I really didn't.
You watched it and you actually said you enjoyed it. I don't know if that was for my benefit or not, but
I also do want to say, I think that the movie feels more self-aware than I expected it to be. It's moments like the baseball scene that I think come off as very dumb, but I read the movie. I think the movie very much knows this, and it's also not what I was expecting. I didn't expect it to be. I guess I didn't expect it to be. I don't want to say I expected it to be dumb, but I didn't expect it to be self-aware of how dumb some of the things are. Because of how much everybody hates it.
But that soundtrack, though, and playing Supermassive Black Hole during that baseball scene was perfect. Sorry, go ahead.
That was it. That's what I wanted to say. I thought that Oliver was going to go.
Okay, so Twilight.
Go ahead, babe.
The story is not bad. The story is not the problem here, and I'll put that out at the very beginning. Starting with the romance, I don't give a fuck if there's a romance or not in this movie. It's, when you're really young and you're in high school, that's kind of what romance is.
It feels like the end of the world all the time. Yeah.
So who cares? Put that in the book. Let it be. Put it in the movie. I don't have a problem with any of that. It's a romance movie. There's a romance in it. Great. I also think the vampire lore in the movie is actually very cool. Reminds me a little bit actually of Dr. Sleep in just the way that the people are and the way that they act.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
And I like a lot of the characters in this movie, excluding Edward. I don't like fucking Edward, and I don't like Bella. I found them to be very unlikable characters. I'm hoping that changes as we go. The only character that I really liked and wanted to see more of was fucking Jacob, who's not in this movie enough because
in the other ones plenty, trust me.
I wanted to see more about him. I thought their shit was actually kind of interesting, and he didn't present me with a reason not to like him. Now,
for the record, I was always Team Jacob over Team Edward, and not because like I think Edward's creepy or anything like that. I just don't think he's all that interesting.
To amend a statement,
Carlisle are much more interesting of vampires than Edward is.
I guess to amend a statement I did before where I said I don't know why you would be on Team Jacob when the first movie sets up that clearly Edward is the one. If I could...
I'm not Team Jacob, I'm Team Edward. I just think Edward's also an asshole.
I just want to amend this statement.
Can we please make the title of this podcast be Are You Team Jacob or Team Edward?
I'm Team Jeremy.
Sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
I almost don't want to say this because I am about to talk about anime for a second. I know that I literally was thinking about this earlier. Best girl is not always main girl, and I guess I've now thought of it in that context, and it makes much more sense that you would be on Team Jacob, even though clearly Edward is the one that she's going to end up with.
Right. Now.
They do make you wonder a little bit, though.
Who she was going to wind up with?
Mm-hmm.
I disagree.
I'm assuming
I never read the book.
Yeah, you're seeing this in a bottle right now.
You asked me to watch the movie, not
I agree. I'm sorry. No, I'm not saying about the book. I'm saying throughout the course of the movies, this is a saga. There are multiple things that happen.
Right, but I can't weigh in on...
I understand that. I'm just saying.
Okay, well, I'm just saying
Because you guys are making Team Jacob, Team Edward like the thing right now, and that really doesn't happen until
because
later.
that's the only cultural significance.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, I'm
I'm
viewing
not
it.
saying. I'm
I'm
not
viewing
saying
it.
you don't. All right,
You
Jeremy.
go. You say the
Let's
thing.
talk at the same time.
I'm viewing it. You didn't say the thing. I'm viewing it from the lens, because that's the only lens I have to view it from, is how I remember it from culture.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying
it's just the point of, I was surprised to see how it actually is versus how I remember it being represented in culture.
I'm not saying they do or they don't show me it later. I'm just saying from this experience here, there is no doubt in everything that Jeremy is saying about it's clearly going to be Edward. From where I'm standing at this time, makes total sense.
Right. But from a standpoint of this being the first movie, you guys are taking things that happen later that you don't know about and applying it to the first movie and having an issue with it. Whereas when that movie came out originally, that was not an issue.
Well, but
you know what I'm saying?
But I even think from the perspective that, like, no matter how much in later movies, and I guess because I know she ends up with Edward might be influencing that. Spoilers, I guess, my bad. But I guess I know she eventually ends up with Edward. Even in later movies, no matter how much you can try to convince me that Jacob may be an option, I will never be able to forget the first movie where it is shown to me that he is the only option.
Right.
And I don't think that, again, this is something that goes on like as subtext through the remainder of the movies, and you would have to watch them in order to get it. And I don't think that they're trying to show you necessarily that Jacob and Bella belong together in a romantic sense, but they are connected, and you'll get there.
Okay, we'll get there.
You'll get there.
Best girl is not always main girl, or main girl is not always best girl. I get it.
Okay, so Twilight.
Yep. Go ahead, hon.
I don't hate the story. I think from watching this movie in a vacuum, which is what would have existed when it came out if you hadn't read the books, this is how you would see it.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with what Jeremy is saying, and I prefer Jacob.
I do too.
I can't even say that I prefer Jacob because he's not a presence in this movie.
Well, he's not in the movie, but I wish he was in the movie so I could learn about that nice wolf boy.
Okay.
Now, this is a poorly made movie. That's my problem here. You have content that is already being laughed at and not taken seriously if you look at the cultural zeitgeist of the time. I think the thing to do would have been to double down on some of the things in the movie that were a little laughable. And now when it's self-aware, that works. But the scene where Edward is showing her how his powers work, there are so many jump cuts and things that look like they were cut for comedy that bother me in the movie, you know? And I wish that the package, and on top of that, a lot of the lighting is very flat. A lot of like what you're looking at is just not visually appealing to me. But that's not a product of the story, you know? So I wish that the story had been put in something where a little bit more attention was given to, let's make this look cool. Because Harry Potter is a dumb story to an extent. That's put in and handled with a lot of care so that you're watching a very well-made movie, you know? And I don't know how it is in the book, so I can't speak to that, you know? I just wish watching it as an adult and a person who's seen a lot of movies that some of the technical things they do that are kind of egregious mistakes for a filmmaker were not present so I could get past them, you know?
Gotcha.
Some of the things strike me as comedic and not intentionally. And that is my main concern with this because it makes you feel the runtime a little more than I would have liked.
Okay.
When it's not struggling with these things, though, I think it works as a very nice high school romance story, and I actually quite like it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with liking it, you know? I don't know why it was
with liking it.
Right. And I don't know why it was bagged on for so long, and I don't know why it was like, oh, that's for girls, you know?
Right.
Other than the love triangle. I think there's a lot of stuff that just fantasy people could have gotten behind if it was put in another package that maybe they wouldn't have judged so hard at first.
And the thing is, I think when the movies were coming out, they weren't being judged as harshly. And I think that allowed, I mean, like, again, I'm coming at this from a totally different perspective than you guys. First of all, I'm a female. So the the media and the
well, you were the target audience.
I was the target audience, exactly.
Right.
And I was of the age because I was just fresh out of high school. Like, you know what I mean? I was around the same age as Bella, and that was what we were going for. That was, I am who this movie was made for. And I think that at the time and when the movies were coming out, I mean, like, it was a big deal.
Sure.
Like, these movies were a big deal. Like, you remember when you used to have to go to the movie theater to get your tickets for something for opening night, for midnight of opening night? Like, you remember when that was a thing? Like, you had to physically go there, wait in line, get your ticket, hope that you could get one, and then it wasn't assigned seating, so, you know, you had to get there. I mean, I waited online for hours to get into the theater to see the movie. Mm-hmm. And I was actually, at one point in time, Justine and I went to see, I believe it was Eclipse, the third one, went to go see it, and we actually got yelled at by the woman who was selling us the tickets, which is just this is just a funny aside. We got yelled at, and she was very, very rude to us, and she basically told us to fuck off because I guess she just like was having a bad day. This was at AMC in Levittown, by the way.
No, we don't want to get doxxed. This was at AMC.
This is at an AMC, and we ended up complaining to one of the managers there at the time. And, you know, saying like, you know, we don't understand, like, we're just trying to come and buy tickets for the movie. Like, you're selling tickets for the movie. I don't understand why it's a problem. And he actually ended up putting us in a private viewing of the movie that night that we didn't have to wait in line for, and that wasn't as full as the rest of them. I mean, like, this was a big deal. Like, every theater was playing the movie, right. And it was like a huge thing, and it wasn't a joke, and it wasn't a spoof, and it wasn't like something to be ashamed of. It was the culture. It was what was going on at that time.
I remember all of that. Mm-hmm. We were young, but I was around Ford, and it's one of the first things that I really remember being a phenomenon, bar Harry Potter and Pirates of the Caribbean. Uh-huh. What I will say, though, is that you were in the demographic that was going for it.
Right.
And that was the demographic that was taking the movie seriously, which is fine. You know, that's awesome. They made a lot of money. There's no way you could look at this and say it wasn't a cultural success. I'm not suggesting that. All that I'm saying is that you could have had something that appealed to even more people, you know, and if only because the people who were predisposed to hating on it decided that they had their way after seeing the movie, you know, and so the people who like it, more power to you. And there were a lot of them, of course, but the people who hate on it, I see the reasoning that they were talking about. And I think a little bit of a different marketing strategy and some other choices being made would have made it wider received and maybe even remembered a little bit more, because now people don't talk about it, you know, and not that they don't, but I think they could have, you know.
I mean, like, I don't know if it's just because I was slightly more sentient than you at the time, like, and a little bit more of a person. I was on the borderline of like adulthood, that I remember it just differently than you do. But I remember it being received very positively. And I remember even not just myself, but the culture, you know, pop culture, everything was Twilight.
Well, first of all, Twilight is one of the first things in my lifetime that I've watched not only take the positives of the marketing campaign and really relying on those fans, but it also took all the negative things and spun it in its advantage. Mm-hmm. But there was a high presence of negative publicity about this movie as well. That's all. And, you know, I guess if you can't avoid it, use it, because they really did. Because Twilight hate was a real thing too, and you couldn't watch any show without hearing about Twilight. I have an older sister that was into these movies when I was growing up, and
an older sister who is still younger than me.
Okay, but understand, I was aware of this going on.
I'm not saying that you're not, and I'm not discrediting your opinion. I'm just saying that you, I feel like, might not, and I can't speak exactly, but just from my perspective, feel like are remembering it only from the negative perspective, where I remember it from the more positive perspective because it was so hugely successful. Like, it was a huge success.
But that's the only lens that I'm able to view it from, because that's the lens that I exist within, you know?
Fine, but we're having right.
It's not meant to be like a I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. Never mind.
Well, I'm just looking at it from the lens that, I know in from current versus, I was being around back then, just speaking from my perspective as someone who's not necessarily in the target audience, certain things could be different to take source material that I think works, and hopefully going down the line, it also is the first film and the oldest film by that merit. Maybe things changed a little bit on the production side, because the production stuff does bother me about the movie, which I understand is not the people who were seeing it. That wasn't priority one. Priority one was, I want the story to be told like I know the story.
Right. Well, I guess
Wasn't bad.
we'll have to watch the other ones and see how we feel later.
Wasn't bad. I don't think I'll ever go out of my way to watch it again. But really, if you've been holding out on watching Twilight because you remember it being the scourge on film that young boys pretended it was, it's not
There's
that
no
bad.
reason for it.
Yeah. Is the message.
If you want to watch it, go watch it. You'll probably have a really good time.
Yep.
Yeah.
You guys got recommendations for this week?
I do.
Are we doing film or music? Because
You could do
Whatever
anything you
media
want.
you would like.
Oh, okay.
I was going to do music. You could do whatever you want.
Okay, great. I have mine already. Go ahead.
I've got a movie.
You've got
Sorry,
to.
I've also got a movie.
everybody. Okay, you've got a movie too. My movie is, we're going to continue on the trend of filmmakers that I like currently. And we're going to look at another movie that I think is the strongest of a filmmaker's work, and that is World's End from Edgar Wright.
And it's homework even if we've seen it, correct?
Yes.
That's the idea.
Okay, because I've
Revisit
seen it.
it.
Okay.
Because I think this movie was plagued with people viewing it from a perspective that it didn't belong in.
Okay.
This is the third movie in a very successful trilogy, but the only really popular thematic trilogy where it's a series, but they have nothing to do with each other.
Right.
Hot Fuzz.
More like an anthology.
Right. It's an anthology
yeah,
series is what it is. So Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead are without a doubt two of the most popular comedies of all time at this point, especially Shaun of the Dead.
I was going to say definitely Shaun of the Dead. I'm not a huge fan
Right.
of Hot Fuzz.
But the people who were big
Right.
Edgar Wright fans really took to Hot Fuzz. I'm one of them. I love Hot Fuzz. I actually think Shaun of the Dead is the weakest of the bunch. But I understand that's an unpopular opinion, but it is the weakest one.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I think. And I actually think that World's End is the strongest film here because it wasn't caught up with listening to what those people thought they wanted from the movie. Edgar Wright did what he did on all three movies, which is set out to make a personal story that was still a really fun summer blockbuster. This movie is all about, and I don't know if Jeremy knows the twist of the movie.
I do know the twist of the movie only because you put it on your top 10 of the decade. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, and it's not even that, like you mentioned it briefly in your top 10, and then I had to go find the trailer to put the trailer into the video, and the trailer.
Oh, you've seen the damn trailer.
Yeah. That's
right,
it's your fault that I've seen the trailer because it's your idea to put the trailers in the video anyway. I wouldn't have done it if you hadn't said to do it.
I do apologize for that, but still think there's some merit here. I also think the marketing campaign, while I understand why they did it, ruined the big catch of this movie, which is that it's something that will surprise you. All the same, it's really fun to watch how this movie unfolds and the creative turns that it takes, and just how the movie is shot and all the fun Easter eggs within the movie itself, I think make for a really entertaining flick. And I think not enough people give it credit for being what it is. And it's my favorite Edgar Wright movie. So World's End, that's my recommendation.
All right, Jeremy, what's yours?
So when I suggested Beauty Inside, I gave some. Whoops! I almost left the call by accident.
Don't do that.
I would. I gave something that I thought was out of your guys' comfort zone and something that was admittedly a little inaccessible. So I'm instead going to recommend some music that I've been listening to a lot lately because I think it's much easier to recommend and for you to listen to. And it's more stepping out of my comfort zone because I really, really hate sharing the music that I listen to, just as a personal thing. I'm going to recommend that you listen to an artist that I like a little bit called Lianne La Havas. Specifically, I'd like you to listen to her Tiny Desk concert, not the home concert, the Tiny Desk concert. I think that's one of my favorite things by her. But in general, I would listen to more of her music than that. I think that's a better way to do it. The Tiny Desk concert's only like 15 minutes. Yeah, it's music that I really like, and listen to it.
Cool.
There you go.
You're gonna have to send us
a link.
Yes, I'll
or
send you a
something.
link to the Tiny Desk concert.
Perfect. Thank you.
And
Um,
I'd actually, and in addition, I will say this on the podcast, because there is a point to be made that I'd like the audience to also partake in reading or in watching these things, which I understand is a little unreasonable. I think it would also be good to listen to the studio recordings of the songs that she performs in the Tiny Desk concert. But in general, probably could just listen to her whole blood. Maybe, I don't know. As much as you feel comfortable listening to, the point is to work in a sample of the music. Yeah, she's coming out with new music soon, which was not why I brought it up.
What's your name one more time?
Lianne La Havas.
Lianne La Havas.
is it my turn?
It is your
Yes.
turn.
So while I have this platform and while I have you all here, I'm going to make a suggestion that you watch Twilight New Moon as your next homework assignment.
I knew that you would do that
Hopefully.
eventually. I'm shocked that you did it immediately and didn't take the opportunity to suggest other things.
No, I just, I was going to gauge it based off of how our conversation went. And since we kind of are leaving it open-ended because you don't understand the Team Edward, Team Jacob
We
thing.
felt very positively about this movie,
No.
though.
I
know.
forgot the things that one of the things I wanted to say about that movie.
Go ahead.
I guess I'm surprised that Bella didn't turn into a vampire at the end of the movie. I really thought that
Yeah,
she
I
would.
thought that happened sooner, too.
Especially
really
when
thought
he
that she
dips her
would.
and he pretends to bite her neck.
Well, I thought that she would. I thought that the story made sense for her to turn when she had the opportunity to, and I was surprised that she didn't. And I don't know why she didn't. I think I might have liked it better if she did, but that's it. That's all I wanted to say that. We don't have to harp on it too much because we've already moved on.
I had a little bit of outside knowledge about that, and I was still surprised that she didn't turn into a vampire because I forgot.
Well,
I know that
I would love for you to watch New Moon, because, like I said, I was trying to gauge it based off of your response, and it's not that I'm unsatisfied with your response, but we're leaving it open ended because of your unsatisfaction with the Team Edward, Team Jacob thing, and New Moon really showcases why that becomes a thing. So after we do this, I might move on to something else, or I might make you watch Eclipse. I can't say. But I would really love for you to watch New Moon also, and it's a selfish reason because I haven't seen it in so long, and I would love to watch it. I would love to watch it with you. So that's my suggestion.
Yeah, I want to see more of the nice wolf boy with the abs. I did like him in this movie, and I didn't think he was there enough.
He loses his long hair in the second movie.
I forgot that he had the long hair in the first one.
He's very Native American.
I was so surprised. I was gonna say I was so surprised that he had the long hair because I'm familiar with the poster of him with his shirt off.
Right. Well, because they're Native American. That's the whole thing. It's the fact that he's like from an ancient tribe, right? That's derived from werewolves. Yep.
I will just as a quick aside. The biggest cringe of my middle school experience was we had a girl in our class, our science class, who was really into Twilight, and New Moon had just came out. Poor girl. So
can you speak?
She was talking about New Moon, like the phases of the moon, and she got to New Moon, and this girl sits up in her seat, turns around to look at her friend, and then because she's not getting enough attention, goes. And I still remember it over a decade later.
People don't forget.
People don't. I do not forget some of the things that people have yelled out in my school classes. No,
Jeremy,
which I feel like is the worst thing to say because a lot of people have anxiety over that dumb shit, and generally people don't remember.
Of them. in the same class, my science teacher called my father on speakerphone.
Oh yes.
Oh no, made me call my father on
I've
speakerphone.
heard this conversation.
I have not.
You guys know my dad.
Yep.
So that was cool.
That
so
must
yeah,
have
I'm
not
not one
been
to
fun.
talk, but I remember this. I'm not going to put you on blast because I'm nice.
What
Privately put her on blast. I want to know who it is.
Yeah, I'll tell you after.
I was gonna say something and then I forgot.
But I am excited to see it all unfold, especially since I know roughly where it's going.
Oh, Jeremy, do you watch Parks and Recreation?
Yes, actually,
Just
very
watch it.
recently, I have watched the whole
Oh.
series for the first time.
Great. So now I feel like that dad who is trying to get Twilight put
Actually,
in
I
the
was
time
thinking
capsule.
about that.
That is who I am tonight, apparently.
That's all made me think of when they have Tom and Donna sitting at the desk and they're all discussing Twilight.
Mhm.
That was us tonight.
Yes, it was. I think it's fun to go back and kind of look at these movies that were huge
Of course.
phenomenons, like, and
Yeah.
you know,
Well, that's part of the point of doing this. Is it? You
Yeah.
know, I know you guys never watched Brick or were into that scene, so I thought I would recommend it. You know,
Right. And I think
Yeah.
that's the main thing, is to share things that you like that your friends haven't seen. It just gives me a platform to recommend a weird Korean movie to you guys.
And with World's End, I think it's fun for me because I never got to, because people were so disappointed with that particular movie being the last Cornetto movie. I never got to experience a big discussion about this movie, which I think is the best one. So now I'll get that. Thanks for fulfilling my dream, my high school sophomore dreams.
there you go.
There you go. I feel like we've gone over our usual time.
Just like
So,
last time.
That's
That's okay. We were under last week,
we were,
And,
yeah.
We had some rollover
yeah.
minutes.
and we
So
were
if you
over
watch these
the
at the
week
same
before.
time, it is the normal amount, maybe.
Nice.
That being said, I guess good riddance to you.
I guess. Yeah.
Does
good
any-
riddance.
Good riddance.
I
to
have
you.
decided the podcast is over. Good riddance to you.
Good
Good riddance to you.
Oliver, can I tell you a secret?
Yeah.
I've been listening to music the whole time.
I told you do it if you want. Just don't tell me you're doing it.
And I didn't tell you until after.